Hey guys, I got Beth here from Made for TV Movie Podcast. We're going to be reviewing sneakers. Go on ahead, rate us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and of course on Good Pods as well. And then of course rank us on Spotify. That actually allows other people to find us. And we're going to be reviewing our movie review of Sneakers. So let's go on ahead. Let's get on with the show. And we are back. So I have Beth. How are you doing, Beth? It's been a while.
I know. Thanks for having me back, John. I'm really excited to be back on.
Right? And we've been trying to get this sneakers review done for a while. But, here we are. We finally made it to our review. And so, with that being said, let's just dive right up into this thing. All right. So, I'm going to go on ahead in case anybody doesn't know this. I'm just going to give a little bit of a synopsis of the film. And then after that, we're going to start dissecting this thing. This was actually my first time watching Sneakers. So that's going to be an interesting take, but I'm going to let Beth ask me what I thought about the film in a minute. But this actually starts out in 1969, where students Martin Bryce and Cosmo are sneakers who hack into computer networks to finance socialist organizations when Martin leaves for pizza. How convenient. Cosmo gets arrested, forcing Martin to become a fugitive. And then it goes into present day, basically, where now Martin has his own organized team of people, and basically what he winds up doing is he's like a hire on, where he basically just looks at their people's security systems, see if they can be breached, see if what they need to work on, see if they can't be breached, and then he gets paid for it that way. But then the NSA goes on ahead and finds him, and now he's on the run from the NSA. And so this is actually a pretty fun movie. At first, I thought it was going to be a comedy because it had Dan Aykroyd in this movie, and it kind of throws you for a loop. It has a little bit of comedy in it. But you know what, Beth? I'm glad that you recommended this movie because I did enjoy it.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
And it has a 2-hour long runtime, and this is weird for 1992.
Yeah.
But you don't even feel the runtime. I didn't feel it because I was so sucked into it. Mm-hmm. And this was also a movie that was ahead of its time because if you look at it now, it's exactly how they depicted it in 1992, where you have this box and basically it leaks out information into conversations that people are having and things like that. Organizations, rich people, they don't want certain things leaked out. Now we see certain things happening within this world that we live in 2022. So this movie is definitely ahead of its time.
For sure. And the technology that didn't really exist at the time, but it does today. And you're right. It's so forward looking. And if they even remade it today, you have to wonder, like, how much would they even need to change about it? You know what I mean? Because it's so spot on. But that actually reminded me of another Robert Redford movie called 3 Days of the Condor, which is a whole different conversation we'll have another day. But one thing I thought was really interesting, John, was when I was doing this research, one of the writers wrote war games, and I didn't realize it. And so when you look at this film, you definitely get sort of an 80s vibe. Now, you may not, because I lived through the 80s and I saw this film in theater, so I remember, but there is kind of this big sort of government is bad theme from the 80s, and in almost every action movie there is, or a lot of them anyway.
It's always the Russians.
Yes, I was going to say that. It's true. It's true, because we had just gotten out of a Cold War when this movie came out. So when they wrote it, they were smack dab in the middle of it. But you're right. Like that's just kind of the vibe of the film of the era. And it was I just love this film. I saw it with my mom in the theater because she loves Robert Redford. So she was like, drag me along. And I was like, oh, River Phoenix? Okay. Because he was my age.
Okay. You see, I grew up, I was born in 85. But still, to be honest with you, I actually did feel like this was like War Games.
Yes.
But a War Games at a different angle, where it's actually amplified up to 10.
Yes.
And everything.
I think probably that might be because when War Games came out, I don't think Ali Sheedy or Matthew Broderick were not huge names. They weren't the stars they are today, or were even 5 years after that movie came out. But when Sneakers came out, I mean, Ben Kingsley, Robert Redford, Dan Aykroyd, River Phoenix, they were huge movie stars at that time. It was like, let's get the best players we can and put this in the movie and make it. what surprises me though, John, is that this movie is not it's not as like it's not on lists like best of, you know, kind of 90s comedy
Mm-mm.
or um action or anything. You don't really even see it anymore,
No, this is
which is surprising.
well, to be honest with you, I remember as a kid seeing the poster for Sneakers, but not knowing what this movie was about. Because when you're a kid, you don't think, okay, I want to see a, we want to check out
Exactly.
this movie.
Right.
But this has more of a government suspense kind of feel to it, and I really enjoyed it. And then,
Yeah.
of course, the chemistry is just spot on.
So
I mean, come
good.
on, you have Sidney Poitier in this movie.
Oh,
You have Dan Aykroyd, Ben Kingsley with hair. I'm just
yeah.
going to point that out. Mary McDonald. Then you have River Phoenix, like you said, and then David Strathairn. And I just want to say, if those characters didn't have the chemistry, this movie wouldn't be what it is.
You're right. You're right. Especially in that scene, like towards the end, kind of like that scene where they're celebrating and Sidney
Hmm.
Poitier's character has his wife and that kind of thing. I mean, the chemistry felt palpable there. You can
It felt like
feel that
friendship.
yeah, it really did. And I mean, I don't know if that's because they're that good of of actors or they really were friends, but you could totally the casting was brilliant for this movie, really was, because it wasn't a huge I mean, I think it did really well, but it wasn't like, you know, a Rocky or something like that. It
No,
wasn't but it was like this great little film, and I actually had forgotten about it until Sidney Poitier died. And I was thinking about what my and I think we even talked about this at one point, like our favorite Sidney Poitier movie.
yeah,
This was I mean, he made so many good ones and they were all so good and some of them were probably more like lasting as far as the message they gave, but I just really liked him in this one. I liked them all in this one.
me too. And my favorite scene is probably whenever they're trying to decipher the code itself, and they said, and of course, like the code winds up saying secrets. And I'm like, okay, this is very on the nose to the point where everybody in that whole entire friendship has their own secrets as to why they were let go. So
Yes.
so it's very foreshadowing on that part, which is something that I really do appreciate from the film itself, because of the fact that my angle went with the friends. But here's the thing though, it goes deeper than that. It goes to government secrets. It goes through different types of secrets.
Correct. Yes, I agree. And we also have I guess we haven't mentioned this, we have Timothy Busfield too, who always plays like the guy you don't really know is a bad guy until you know he's a bad guy. He's really good at that, and that's the role he played in this one, which I kind of liked. I mean, again, really well casted. My favorite scene was when David Stratham's character was driving.
Oh
That
yeah.
that was just to me that was so funny, and then just every so his character is blind and they have him driving because he's the only one in the van at the time. Everybody's off doing something else, but they have
Well,
to make an
right.
escape, so they're telling him where to go. It's so funny.
It definitely is. But that's actually one of my favorite parts. But you also forget that he's doing blind though too, because he's
Yes.
actually deciphering the code and he's doing the embryo. But at the same time, though, you kind of forget that he's actually blind because he's able to do all this stuff,
Yes.
and you're
Yeah.
forgetting that aspect to it. Then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, we wind up seeing Roger Redford trying to teach him how to drive, while Sidney Poitier and the other characters actually held at gunpoint, and they're
Yes.
and I like how he's basically excited because of the fact that he's driving. He goes, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, I am driving!"
Yeah.
And of course, he's going over bumps, crashing into cars. But you know, but another thing I want to say though is this though is whenever it goes into the motivation of the villain, which is Ben Kingsley's character,
Yeah.
I love how they dived into that because now you have motivation to a person that felt like that he was actually backstabbed by his crew
Yes.
because of what Roger Redford did, which was leave him.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that was a kind of a really great twist to the movie because you weren't expecting that at all. You're not expecting, like, I didn't expect to see him back in the movie after he gets arrested. And I mean, I guess I should have realized that. And I'm also trying to remember what it was the first time I watched it was in 1991 when it came out or 92 when it came out. But when I rewatched it again, I also had forgotten because I don't think I've seen this movie that many times between then and now because it's not on cable or DirecTV or it's not showing. And I don't think it's. I mean, I think I watched it on Amazon. I feel like I did. It's not like streaming on Netflix or anything.
No.
So it's not like just there showing up in your feed saying, "Watch me."
No, it definitely isn't. And if anybody is wondering where they can actually watch this at, I rented this for $4 on YouTube.
Okay,
So
I think I rented it on Amazon, but it might have been YouTube. I can't remember because it was we were originally supposed to review this like a month ago, so it was a little while since we've
yeah,
had a little issues like trying to coordinate, but
hey, but here we are. That's all that
here we are.
matters.
Yay!
A month later, but hey, a movie
Hey,
reviewer is never late, nor is he
right.
early. He arrives just as he means to.
Movie's not
So
going anywhere.
no, definitely not. But another thing though too is like after performing their services for the bank, Martin is also approached by the NSA.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: I like how Dick Gordon and Buddy Wallace, they just go on ahead and they recover the black box, but they don't have any idea what this black box is. And so there's that mystery element of okay, what could this be? Did we stumble onto something that what could this be? And then all of a sudden you see the blind character. He's going through it. Oh, do you want to shut down New England? Do you want to shut down the lights in New England? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? My mind starts thinking about all the events that happened over the course of the years with certain blackouts and things like that. Next thing you know, I become a conspiracy theorist all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's a great thing about this movie is that it really could make you a conspiracy theorist because you're like, what? But I mean, it's funny too because those moments in this film do kind of have that war games feel. You know what I
hmm
mean? Like,
Yeah.
plugging into the government and what the government can do and or what we think. And so it's funny I didn't make that connection because once I realized that, I totally saw it, but I didn't
hmm
realize it an initial viewing or anything like that. I didn't know that. So, but I like that because War Games is again one of my favorite movies of the '80s. Matthew Broderick, he was cute. He was my age. So what are you gonna do? I gotta go see a movie he's in. I mean, I would still today.
Right. But I like Matthew Broderick though, and I like
Yeah.
War Games. War Games is actually my favorite movie from the '80s as well. But also too, I want to talk about Liz for a minute, which is, of course, one of my favorite characters in this film because she gets sucked into this because of Roger Redford. And just because I'm doing this doesn't mean we're going to get back together again. Just no, I'm not asking you to get back together with me. That's not what I have in mind. I just need your help because I need to get this my record sponged and everything, and I need this thing to do. I need to go on ahead and get that taken care of. So, I thought that was very interesting about how she just joins up with them. And, even though that she doesn't really want to, but she wants to help out Roger Redford. So I thought that was actually pretty cool how she helps out Bishop.
Yeah, I think I love that scene in the restaurant too, where she's trying to get the guy to um say the words so they can get into the building with the voice activator. I thought that was really clever. And then I mean, I think her character was interesting because her character got to do a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like
hmm
she wasn't just like, oh, here's a female in a movie, isn't she pretty? Everybody wants her. She had stuff to do in this movie, and I liked that. But I liked it like when she was back at his apartment and she took the wallet and dropped it out the window and then that kind of almost blew up in her face. I thought that was really clever. I thought her character was really cleverly written and I liked how she worked with everybody and she seemed to have a big familiarity with them and knew them all. So I think her character was dating Bishop during the time at least he was still with this group earlier because I think wasn't that she was his ex girlfriend, I think, or not ex-wife,
Yeah,
ex-girlfriend.
ex-girlfriend. And also, too, that's also how Ben Kingsley made the connection. He's like, remember? He's like, wait a second. I know you. And then that's, of course, when her cover gets blown. But I'm in total agreement with you on that, the one, Beth, because of the fact that they gave her more to do. Because back in the '90s, all they cared about was long, tall, slender, blonde women who
Yeah,
were
they
there just
didn't.
for over sexualization. Doesn't
Right,
do anything to motivate the plot. And
right.
this one, they give this woman a lot to do, and that's something I really do appreciate.
Yeah, and I mean, even though her character, I mean, I guess I was going to say her character isn't a big character in this movie, but it kind of is. But it's an important, pivotal character. Like you couldn't take her out. actually, that's the one thing about this movie I liked. You couldn't really take any of these characters out of the movie and still have the movie function the way it did, because every single one in Bishop's group had a part to play in in their operation. Like they all had their strengths that worked together. And so she was definitely a character who for sure was different than a lot of characters in the movies. And in the 80s it was almost worse because um like the 90s, I think the women got a little more sophisticated in movies, but in the 80s that may or may not have been the case. I mean, for instance, Porky's, you know,
Exactly.
Cattrall, is it Kim Cattrall? Miss
Kim Cattrall.
Fallbreaker. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of the role. And I don't want to, say make any statement about it. I'm just saying it was fun to see a brunette, smart woman on screen.
Same. I'm happy to see that. Also, too, we actually that guy played in another Michael J. Fox movie, which was The Secret of My Success. He was like a really snobby, rich office person that he plays.
Which
And it seems
one? Oh wait, okay. I was thinking Doc Hollywood, but no, because you and I reviewed
no
Doc Hollywood. The
right.
Secret of My Success, I did see, but it's been probably 40 years.
It's actually my other favorite Michael J. Fox film. But every single time
Yeah.
when you see this actor shows up, he plays a snob. And this is exactly who he plays in this one. He just plays a nerdy snob
Yes.
who winds up going on this date. But I like how Bishop winds up telling Liz, hey, look, you need to go on ahead. This guy's after anal, people that are anal, girls
Yeah.
that are anal. And all of a sudden he just turns, looks at Liz. And so now Liz is out on a blind date with this guy that she doesn't really want to go with.
Yes. I love that. I like him. I don't remember him in The Secret of My Success, but if anyone else is wondering, he plays Principal Ball in The Goldbergs.
That's right, he does.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I don't know if he's been I haven't watched a lot of. I still have a bunch to watch this season, so I don't know if he's been on this season, but that's who people would probably recognize him as most. But I also wanted to say, John, one of the first times I saw Mary McDonald was actually in a movie with David Stratham called Evidence of Blood. It was an indie flick in the late 90s. It's a great film. It's hard to find, although my sister said it's on Amazon now, which is awesome. If you ever get a chance, it's totally character driven. And that movie actually helped me find one of my very favorite authors because it was based on a book written by an author named Thomas H. Cook. So I just wanted to plug that because he's one of my favorite authors. And I thought it was interesting that Mary McDonald and David Stratham were both in this. They both starred in that movie. So Evidence of Blood, I think it came out in like 97, 96, somewhere around there.
Okay. So let's see here. I wanted to also mention this though too. Sidney Poitier. I liked how he wants to take his wife to Tahiti and things like that, and and then of course Dan Aykroyd is also playing Mother. That's also another thing that I find hilarious though too. But I like how Sidney Poitier is just owning this role and how smooth he is.
He's like regal and gracious and just I love him. His presence is so commanding. I just loved him in this movie.
And he plays that ex-CIA so good. And I
Yes.
liked how finally we get the roots to it of, oh, you want to know why I was gone, why I got kicked out of the CIA? Why? Because of my anger problem.
I love that, and I
Loved
liked
it.
his wife too. Thought that was a nice scene when she was on in there. But I do think, like you were saying earlier, I love the dichotomy between him and Mother, because Mother is sort of just kind of I don't know. He looks like he maybe changes his clothes once a week, and kind of just is
Right.
like whatever. I don't care. I am who I am. But you're right. It's interesting that they chose Dan Aykroyd for that role, but I can't think of anybody else who could have played it as well as him. Maybe Bill Murray, but I don't even know. It was definitely. I feel like they wrote that role for him.
Same. I think that was actually a perfect role for Dan Aykroyd, especially coming off the hype from Ghostbusters and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So, and then, he has also played in Blues Brothers, but that was years before. But
Yeah.
you need somebody that will actually have chops that you can actually balance off of each other. But you're not sure how it was actually going to go with Roger Redford in him. because,
No.
and this is what I was thinking, Beth. Now, tell me what you think about this. Okay, so we have the old school actor, Roger
Yeah.
Redford, and we also have another old school actor, Sidney Poitier.
Okay.
Now we have the new age in the '90s, which is our generation, which is our Edward Blues, our our Dan Aykroyd, and
Yes.
then we also have these other young actors. So you have a blend of new age mixed in with old age acting,
Yeah.
and you're not sure how it's going to balance out. But I like how they clash it together and wrote the script and it balanced each other out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, right. And there is definitely an age difference between Robert Redford, Sidney Poitier. I don't know how close in age those two are, but they both really became famous in the same era. And then you have River Phoenix, who at the time was maybe 21. He might not have even been 21 yet. I'm trying to think. 91? No, he probably was just around 21. If he's pretty much my age. At 79, so 20 or 21. I mean, there's a pretty big age difference, and they did balance. You're right. They balanced it out really well. But I think that's because they worked so carefully through the characters. And it might be because it took them 10 years to write this film or close to that. Because if they started it when War Games was being written, it could have been 10 years in the writing, close to it, somewhere around 5 to 10. So they really fleshed the characters out so well, but you can see it in the performances because of who they hired to play the characters.
most definitely. And then also too, another thing is too with Cosmo. Cosmo was basically your version of what's the word I'm thinking of? A conspiracy theorist in a
Mhm.
sense,
Mhm.
because of the fact that he has his glass. He goes, "Look, I can't talk here," and then he points. I'm like, "Dude, it's your own office. Why?" I'm like,
Don't tell them
you're the
that.
one who put your own cameras in your own office. So why are you so afraid of your own security? This is a guy that's then he also has like a glass not a glass house basically, but a glass window where basically you can come in and talk privately with nobody else hearing, which he was probably maybe the only person in his office that actually he has in. He's probably so panicky that he would be the only one in there. Nobody else
Yeah.
would even go there. So I'm like, okay, so you have this for no apparent reason either. So you're rich now. You're still pissed off at Bishop and the crew, but the plot motivation. And I told people this too, and I'm using Venom as an example. As long as you have plot motivation for the villain, and even though it may sound cheesy, but as long as the villain is believable enough for you to believe, and as long as that plot motivation is there, I'm sold. As long
Yeah.
as it makes sense.
Yeah.
And this Cosmo plays a good villain,
Yeah.
and he won't kill his friends, despite the fact that they left him.
Yeah.
But he still get somebody else to do it. That's just gangster.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah. That that very first scene, I think, was a good way to set up that movie, and so in a way to set him up to be the villain. But it really, if the writing hadn't been good, they really could have messed that up and made you the viewer like not like Bishop, and then maybe be like okay with Cosmo because after all, he kind of was the first. I mean, I don't want to say he was a victim because he was committing illegal acts when they got caught, but he
but that
also
was a
got
douche
caught.
move. But that was a
Yeah, it
dick. That was a
was.
dick move. That was a
But
dick
I
move,
think
though.
in the same situation, we all would have done the same thing, right? I mean, I think I
Ooh,
would have.
pizza.
Okay, maybe you wouldn't have done. I would have ran.
Yeah, I would be like, here's the thing. I wouldn't be worried about pizza. I'd be like, okay, dude, you said you'd be gone in like 30 minutes. It's been close to an hour. I'm gonna check out. Have a good rest of your night.
Yeah, and it had that like that whole beginning scene also had kind of like that whole Watergate feel to it, like breaking into the
Yep.
office late at night, but it also was kind of ahead of its time, even for the 90s, writing it back for the 60s that, for the 60s too, it was pretty forward like in what they were doing, you know, because I don't know. I just thought it was just so clever from beginning to end. But I liked Cosmo I mean I just didn't I understood why he was doing what he was doing. I kind of did, even though you were not supposed to like him. I kind of didn't hate him.
To be honest with you, I didn't hate this villain at all. I
No.
found him more hysterical than anything. I found him funny because of
Yes,
the fact that he's just basically just a conspiracy theorist that happens to have this black box,
and a lot of money.
a lot of money, and that's all he has. And get this, he should be being on cloud nine because Roger Redford's character Bishop doesn't have anything.
No. No, I mean,
So
even for as hard as they work and as much as they work and what they do, they don't seem to have a lot of money, or they must put it all back into the business to like keep their technology up or something. Because you didn't get the feeling that any of them had like, you know, Sidney Poitier's character wanted to go to Tahiti, so obviously they don't have like go to Tahiti money. I don't know how much it costs to go to Tahiti. I wouldn't
me
say
either.
no to a trip there, but I mean it's expensive, I'm sure. So yeah, you get this feeling that there's not, even though he got away with the crimes or didn't get caught or whatever, he still wasn't raking in the dough.
No, definitely not. And then, I like also too whenever they decide, okay, you know what, we can't trust the government. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go on ahead and call up the NSA or the FBI and do a thing where they can't trace us. And they only had like a 10-second window before they actually got traced because they were bouncing signals in certain areas.
Mhm.
And so I liked how they played off of that. And then of course they're also doing the lie detector test though too that Mother was doing.
Yes.
And then I like how Liz is giving them that look is like really with the lie detector thing and stuff like that. But but then it's like, okay, we gotta hurry up and everything. We only have 10 seconds. Okay, well, will you guarantee us safety? We cannot trust him. We have to go. Because he was telling the truth up until the point where he winds up asking the person who was in charge of all the stuff that deals with astronomy and stuff with the
Mhm.
security over there.
Yeah.
And basically, they, point blank, without the box, they don't have any guarantee of protection. So therefore, they have to break into Cosmo's office. But the thing is, Bishop doesn't even remember how he even got there, and leave it to a blind man to teach him how to be blind and being able to pay attention to certain sounds.
Yeah. And I loved how they had his character so in tune to sounds. And I mean, because remember they also, there was that when he was when he said that the geese, what did he say that sounded like? Oh, I can't remember. Was it people in
Uh, there was a
a
horn, like a
stadium, or I
well,
can't,
there was a
I
Golden
can't
Gate
remember.
Bridge. There was a
Yeah.
Golden Gate Bridge, and then there was also the foghorn.
Yeah.
That was also two things.
Yes. And then and then he was able to figure, I mean, he just could do so much with the gift that he had, and I love that, and I thought that was really well played throughout the movie, and I think it took the movie to a really such a high level of just complexity that I just loved it. I love I'm a huge fan of his too. I mean, there isn't anybody in this movie I'm not a fan of, but I love David Stratham. I love River Phoenix. I love Robert Redford. I love Sidney Poitier. That's why I wanted to do this movie and talk about it, because they're just all so good. But the characters that were
Mhm.
written were so they were written so well.
Definitely. And I like how if one character is weak in one area, you have another character that can pick up on that weakness and be their backup. And if that character has a weakness, that other person also has their back too.
Yeah.
So I like that as a counterbalance thing. And
Yeah.
then also too, I was not expecting James Earl Jones to show up. But then again, he's been in every single 80s movie that you can think of.
I
Uh,
know. He's so great though. His presence is amazing. I loved him. I love him.
Especially my favorite part though is this: everybody's wanting stuff from him after they give him the black box. And so the only thing Roger Redford wants, Bishop wants, is his record to be sponged. I'm like, wait a second, you just went through the NSA to get $175,000 for your team. Why didn't you ask for your stuff to get sponged off and get your $175,000, which can be broken into sections for your team?
Yeah.
And but then again, I remember whenever Sonny Pone told the other guy, the other guy though goes, "Look, this is the home run. You don't just ask for somebody's number."
Yeah,
Talking
and then
about that.
remember Phoenix's character did.
Yeah.
I love that. He just wanted her phone number. Just wanted it was FBI, right? Was that
Yeah.
FBI at that point? This gets so confusing with some of the agencies who may or may not even be real agencies. But I just thought that was so cute. He's like, just want the phone number.
Right. And then the girl's so moved by it and was like taken back. Wait, out of everything that you can ask for, you just want my number? She
Yeah.
just winds up giving it to him on the fly. And then you wind up seeing Sidney Poitier. He goes, "Okay, my wife has never been to Europe. No, I'm not taking you to Europe." Just come on. I want to go to Europe. I want to go to Tahiti. And he's like, "I'm not doing it." And then, of course, Bishop goes, "If you don't, we don't give you the black box." And then some things might get leaked out on the internet. Well, not the internet, but might be
Yeah.
leaked out. But I catch myself doing that, though, through this whole thing. And I forget, I grew up in the 90s, but I'm thinking with a 2022 mindset.
Yes.
But then we also get into River Phoenix's character, though, too, yet again, where I remember something else that he winds up doing. And that, of course, he winds up asking for the number, but the girl winds up giving it to him. And then he's like, he's happy.
Yeah, I
But
liked his character. His character's a little understated, but I liked it like when he was up in the ceiling, like shimmied around trying to figure that out. And I thought I love I don't know. I just can't say enough about how much I loved it. Like, and watching it again just made me feel very nostalgic for old movies that just are, I don't know, lovely. Like, they don't make movies like that anymore. Although, did you get, I mean, now that I think about, once I was thinking about it, I wonder how much of an influence The Italian Job had from that movie. Because if you think about the coincidences, not the coincidences, but the comparisons between the two, there's not really a lot of them. And I'm trying to think, The Italian Job would have come out when, the 98, late 90s, early 2000s?
early 2000s is
There's
when
a
the matter of fact, The Italian Job was actually a remake of a
Yes.
movie.
Yeah, you're right.
But
So actually that means that Sneakers could have been an influence of the original Italian Job, actually.
right, and then the remake of The Italian Job could be a thing of bolt models.
Right.
But if you think about it, though, Cosmo is basically what's the Edward
Donald
Norton's
Sutherland.
character.
Oh, Edward Norton, yeah.
The villain, Cosmos, reminds me of Edward Norton's character. He's
Yeah.
so smart and rich, but he's also dumb at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't like Edward Norton's character though. I
He's very
was like,
snarky.
"Oh, I wanna hit you in the face." But I
But
didn't hate
he
Cosmo.
plays
But you're
douchebags.
right. But you're absolutely right though. I mean, there are a lot of comparisons between the two, especially when you talk about like them having money, them being the villains, having like personal motivation. It was just an interesting thing that actually, like, when I was thinking about it today, I was like, gosh, that reminds me of The Italian Job. But you're right. I forgot that was a remake as well from the original, which probably would have come out in the 70s. So definitely before Sneakers.
Yeah, definitely before Sneakers. Definitely before the 2000s Italian Job. But still a fun time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I got all the points that I wanted to talk about with this film. I mean, what about you? Is there anything else?
I think no, I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed this, and I would say that I would really recommend that people who haven't seen it watch it. I mean, we've done we've reviewed a lot of movies together, and I think this is probably my favorite one of all of them. Although if you'd asked me before we started reviewing, I would have maybe made a different list. It's funny how when you get to 2022 and you're looking back on movies that are so old, how some of that can change. But I think this one really held up. I think it was really well written, really clever, great casting. And I just think people should watch it because it's a feel good movie and it's funny. And you were right about the 2 hour time span. You don't feel it. You don't feel
No,
it at all. It goes very fast.
most definitely, because I was glued in and enticed into the storyline.
Mhm.
And I didn't even feel it. Some 2 hour movies, it's like, okay, I get it. Get me
Yeah, you're
out of
like,
here.
"Oh, are we done?"
That's actually how I felt with the movie Ambulance with Michael Bay.
I never saw that one.
It's a new movie that just came out, but
Okay.
Michael Bay got a little too happy with his drone, and my co-host Alex got motion sickness from the drone. But it got to the point where it's like, okay, get on with it already. We get it. They're held hostage in an ambulance. We need, come on, just go ahead and wrap this thing up.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this
It's
one, I
funny.
didn't feel that.
It's funny you say that. This is completely kind of unrelated, but my husband and I went with another couple last weekend to see the 25th anniversary of Riverdance.
Oh,
About
nice.
about 10 minutes in, I was ready for it to be done. I mean, you just don't need 2 hours of it. But this movie, 2 hours is good.
It's
I would
perfect.
have gone to see a part two if there was. They should have made a sequel. I wish
I
they had.
agree.
I wish they
Another
had.
th- Another thing too, Beth, is this movie only had a budget of 23 million.
Wow, that's really small. And when you consider how much of that went to probably paying the actors,
Well, here's the thing. Back in those days, though, we
oh,
don't,
you would have signed up for yeah.
here's the thing. Back in those days, we didn't have comic book movies. We didn't have. It was on a different scale on how you make movies today. Because this movie would actually cost maybe 150 million to make, given the cast, given their popularity, and if they were still around making movies today. This
And
would actually
marketing.
and marketing and everything else. Because a third of that, people don't realize this. Yes, if you see a movie that makes bank, a third of that goes into the box office. The movie theaters don't really make that much money.
No.
Everything is all for concession stands and stuff like that. But you take a third of that away, that's how much the movie actually makes. And it goes through the PR departments, pay the actors, makeup people, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. That's another factor.
Yeah, that's a great point. And to that point, I think I'm trying to think. So really, would you consider Batman with Michael Keaton be really the first movie, like comic book movie? That would have been in
Yeah,
85. So you're talking about 5
88.
years earlier. You're right. It wasn't what it is today. It was barely
Mm.
starting. And I'm not even sure if they were like, oh, we should. I don't know if they were thinking sequel when they made that movie. They obviously did make
Well,
sequels.
well, here's the thing. In '88, this is off topic, but I like
Yeah,
doing
no,
this
go
stuff.
go ahead. I'm game.
Okay, back in 1988, and also too in Batman Returns, the reason why they killed off their villains was because of the fact that they didn't think that audience would go back and want to watch another Batman movie or anything like that. So therefore, they would kill off their villains and not give them story arcs after a certain point. But we also got to see Catwoman at the very end of Batman Returns, thinking that she would actually return, but that never even happened.
Yeah.
But still, they didn't put forth any more effort than what they did in the early on in 1988 Batman or in the 90s when Michael Keaton. So therefore, the budgeting is different. Then you also have to look at marketing and stuff like that. But yeah, it's a different way of looking at the scale on how you would make movies compared to
Yeah.
how it is today.
Yeah. I'm gonna say that I don't think in the 80s when they conceived this that it was going to become what it is today.
Right.
The comic book universe that's out there. I mean, it's just endless the amount of things that you can do with movies now. And I just don't think that was what they were thinking. I mean, it would be great to go back and talk to somebody who was a part of creating that and see what their thought was. And also it would have, I mean, today it still takes a long time because of special effects and things like that, but I think it took a long time to film those movies compared to how we do it today, especially when you consider they just didn't have a lot of CGI and
No,
and the kinds of things that they have today at the beck and call to be able to do some of the things. So it was all like, smoke and mirrors back then, really.
exactly. And also too, I don't normally do this, but I just was kind of wondering what Rotten Tomatoes scale was, right?
Hmm.
So this actually has 79% on Rotten Tomatoes with 52 critics. The website concept states there isn't much to Sneakers' plot, and that's more than made up for with the film's breezy, patchy, and high-tech lingo.
I disagree with
Me
that.
too.
I totally disagree with that. I feel like whoever wrote that didn't see the movie.
Me too. I feel like maybe this might be a critic that's basically pointing their views out in 2022.
Yeah.
and comparing his movies to now instead of looking on a Richter scale of movies that we got back in the 90s. Someone
Yeah.
like us would actually give it about an 80 to 90%. Don't get me wrong, 79% is still fresh, but
Yeah.
also too, it kind of leans into more of a, it still is a C minus versus a B.
Exactly. I disagree with that. I think that's too bad. I agree. I think whoever they're putting on the lens of 2022 or the aughts and looking back and saying, well, it didn't. But even still, it has a really good plot. I mean, there's a lot of movies that did a lot better with a lot less, like with a lot
Definitely.
crappier storyline than this one had. I thought this one was pretty. I don't know. Now I feel like maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am.
No. This movie was good, Beth. Don't let
Thank
Rotten
you.
Tomatoes fool you.
Rotten Tomatoes,
Okay.
you're not gonna fool me.
But anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for our show for today. If you want to follow Beth and everything, all her links and everything is in the description below for you guys to go ahead and do that.
And there's the hashtag right there.
Right. And by the way, tomorrow, get yourself some merch because tomorrow's the last day on the 26th. That's it. That's the cutoff. There's not going to be any more Top Gun shirts
I
on
ordered
sale.
mine. Order your Top Gun shirt. I ordered mine. I can't wait for it to come. I'm super
I
excited.
can't. To be honest with you, I ordered myself a T-shirt as well.
I
So
may have
I
to
can't.
order another one because that's my husband's favorite movie, and he might
Awesome.
take it if I just have one. I should go
So-
get another one because otherwise we're going to be fighting over it.
There you go. I don't want to worry at your house or anything like that. And you don't want to worry at your own house whenever you're buying a Top Gun T-shirt. So go ahead and get yourself 10 T-shirts if you
Another
want
one.
to.
Yeah.
So go ahead, get another one. All right. Always until next time, guys. Tomorrow night, I have Rossie with me. I have Alex with me. We're going to be doing our Godfather rewatch. So go ahead and do that and check us out tomorrow night, 9 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Time for that one. And always until next time, guys, have a great and safe night. Thank you again, Beth. And
Thanks, John.
anytime, Beth. And bye-bye.